Is it rolling? All right, good evening, everybody. Good evening to all of our men here. We are glad that you're able to be here. Again, your presence tonight is a testament to your love for Christ, love for souls, and the desire to want to do something about the condition of our world, condition of our families, condition of our community. Unfortunately, this is the last night of our seminar. We've been blessed tremendously with some wonderful and encouraging, informative, and equipping lessons by Brother Rob, and his wife Nicole is presently teaching our ladies, and Brother Rob has been a tremendous speaker this week. His wife, a wonderful lady, as well as his children, Hannah, and I want to say Jacob, but Jared, excuse me. And they all work together as a family to travel around the country to help train congregations to reach out to the lost. And so we're not going to use much more of Brother Rob's time tonight. I'm going to open us with a word of prayer, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Our Father in heaven, the only wise, true, living God of heaven and earth, we are grateful to you for all of your blessings, for the richness of your love and your mercy and your kindness. And we pray, Father, that our time together tonight would be edifying to us, but most importantly, glorifying to you. We pray that the things that we learn and that we are told we will be able to implement, to put into practice, that we might be able to reach souls that are lost. We thank you for all that you do. We pray your blessings on Brother Rob and his family as the night closes and they travel back to their home. We pray that you continue to bless them, not only in their travel, but in their labor to expand the borders of the kingdom. We pray that you bless the Church of Christ the world over. Can you keep us in your care? Help us to live faithfully, Father, so that in the end we might see you in peace. This is our prayer through Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Winston Churchill was pushed into a position of leadership when he had thought that his days of influence had passed. It was Chamberlain who was in charge of Great Britain. The Nazis were advancing across France. The British people were being bombarded almost daily. The morale of the people could not be lower. And Winston Churchill walked into the Commons of Great Britain. The Prime Minister sat as along with the assemblymen, and he made a rousing speech to his country. The war was going poorly, and Winston Churchill knew if changes were not made quickly, his country wasn't going to make it. In one of his speeches, he said this: "He who fails to plan is planning to fail." He said to his countrymen, we have no plan. We're going to lose this war unless we change our direction. When the people rallied around Winston Churchill, and we know that the rest of the story is that Great Britain rallied together, pushed the Nazis back, and with the help of the American forces, they were able to defeat the Nazis in World War II. Friends, we're facing spiritually something that Great Britain was facing nationally. We are facing right now the decline of the Church of Christ in our country to a point where if we do not make changes, if we keep the status quo, the forces of evil are going to overcome the forces of good in this nation, and our children and grandchildren are going to be forced to worship from homes, and nice buildings and facilities like this all over our country are going to sit empty because we're not going to have enough soldiers, enough Christians even to fill the very structures that we have today. It gives me no pleasure to pass along that news to our brethren and to emphasize that during our seminars. Brethren, I wish it wasn't so. If there was ever a time in my life where I wish I was wrong when it comes to looking at the projected future of our churches if we don't make changes. The changes we need to make are not changes doctrinally. In fact, we need to stand our ground now more than ever. As forces of sin and wickedness seem to push ever deeper and further into religious culture, we must stand our ground. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about our tactics. I believe that the British people during Chamberlain's rule wanted to survive just as much as they did during the rule of Prime Minister Churchill. So it wasn't the desire, it's not your desire that I question. It's not your hearts that I question. It's not your willingness to put every effort into succeeding that I question. I'm not accusing you of being apathetic. I'm not accusing you of being unloving. But brother, what I am suggesting is that our tactics for the last 20 and 30 years, they're just not working. And what we see as a result of that is a declining membership. But the good news is that there are tactics that do, that we can win, that there are things that we can do as a church that will succeed and help congregations successfully push back against the forces of wickedness. Brother, never forget that you are in a spiritual war, but it's not a seek and destroy mission. So we're not out there trying to destroy every false doctrine. It's not trying to destroy your friends and the people who disagree with you. It's a seek and save mission. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers, principalities, rulers of this dark and wicked world. And so the war that we fight tonight is a war for the survivability of the spiritual welfare of our families. And so there's never been a calling that's been more important. I'm asking tonight for this church to make a commitment, no matter how difficult it becomes, to focus on saving people in your community and understanding that it's going to be going upstream. This is going to be difficult. What we're asking churches of Christ to do is to rethink how they're reaching their fellow man. So if this was easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's not easy. It's difficult. And so tonight, as we begin this lesson, I want to use an analogy. I want to start with 2020. And it was about June of 2020. August was approaching quickly, August the 10th, and that's my anniversary. And I looked at my wife and I said, honey, it sure would be nice for us to do something around our anniversary. And I noticed on our schedule, we're going to be in St. Mary's, Georgia. And I said, you know what? Wouldn't it be great if we went out and did something we've never done before? And she said, what would that be? I said, deep sea fishing. And she looked at me and she said, well, if you want to go deep sea fishing, go ahead and schedule it. So I called the brethren at St. Mary's, Georgia. I said, tell me, is there anybody there in St. Mary's, Georgia that takes people deep sea fishing? He says, Rob, they're everywhere. He said, but COVID is hit, and so you can pretty much name your captain. There's no one here. And he said, but there's one captain, and you have to really book him out in advance, but you might get him. He gave me his phone number, and I called him. He said, son, I don't have any bookings. He says, go ahead and come on. So we got there a little early before the seminar began. I said, Captain, what time would you like us to get out there? He said, about 3 o'clock. I said, Captain, that does not give us a lot of time to fish. He said, oh, no, son, that's 3 in the morning. I said, all right, Captain. I said, how will I know it's you when I get out there at 3 in the morning? He said, son, I'll be the only one there. And I said, all right. I said, sounds good. So my family, my dad, my family, we got out there, and it was the captain, the first mate, and the boat, and we get out there, and he says, climb on board. We got on board. He gave us a few safety rules, and he said, now hunker down. He said, it's going to be hours before we make our destination. So I hunkered down, and I fell asleep. I mean, it was hours, before sunlight. And suddenly he stopped the engines. He said, everybody up. He said, we're going to catch our bait. And he says, you're going to catch your own bait, son. So I got up there, and we got our poles and then everything. He had everything hooked up and set up perfectly. And he's got this monitor. He's got more gadgets and screens. He said, all right, everybody got their poles ready? He says, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull them in. Man, I pulled in. I had bait fish all over my hooks. I mean, treble hooks running down my line. I said, that's incredible. We took the bait fish off the hooks. We put them in the live well, And I said, wow. I said, this guy knows his stuff, No wonder he's so sought after. He said, all right, everybody hunker down. Be another hour. So, man, we're way out in the ocean, We're getting out there, And he said, son, what is it you want to catch? I said, I want to catch the big stuff. I said, I don't want any of this small. He said, son, just wait. So I get out there, and he said, would you like to go first? I said, I would. He said, hook him in. Brother, when they got to hook you in, you're in trouble. So he zips me up and hooks me up, and then I got this big old thick pole, and he puts it out there, and he's watching all these monitors, He said, all right, 10, 9, he's counting down, and the first mate's standing right next to me, and he's just watching me, and all of a sudden that pole just went right down. He said, son, keep it straight up, 12 o'clock, son, don't let it dip. He said, all right, and then they're talking me through this about 20 minutes, and I'm trying to pull this monster fish in. It's a kingfish. Brother, there's a reason it's called a kingfish. This thing is a monster fish. And I kept bringing it in. I'm fighting it the whole time. We're taking pictures, And right as it coming into the back of the boat, pulling it on in the back of the boat, there's this fish, and it jumps out of the water, and it takes half of my fish with him. It's called a barracuda. I'm telling you what, I've never seen anything like that. We got it all on film. And I said, wow, I still had this much fish. And brethren, by 2 o'clock that afternoon, we had our limit, and we were going home. That man knew his stuff. He knew exactly where to go. He knew exactly what to use. He knew exactly what kind of equipment. He spared no expense. He had everything he needed. There's no doubt he had spent night and day studying it. He knew his trade. I want to know tonight in our pews, how many of our men are more prepared to go get the big buck than you are to go out there and get a sinner? I want to know how many of us sitting in the pews tonight are more prepared to go out and get our catfish. And we'll go out there, we're more prepared to get our big bass than we are to go out there and help souls come to Christ. And you spare no expense. You go out there and get the best camouflage, the best rifle, the best shotgun, the best ammunition. You get out there, man. You don't look at it and say, well, I just don't know if I've got, man. You get on YouTube, you get the magazines. You don't complain. You get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You put the gear on when it's cold outside. No one complains. And I wonder if we're just as passionate about helping the people we know who are lost go to heaven. You know, being a man doesn't necessarily mean that I get the big buck. But being a man means I step up to the plate and lead. And I lead my family. And I help the church fulfill the most important mission in life. And you know what? You can go to heaven and never get the big buck. I'm not so sure you're going to go to heaven without helping people go with you. I want to give you 10 things, and this is in your Evangelism Simplified guidebook. You don't have to write them down. I have an entire chapter at the end of this book. I just want you to listen carefully. You can take notes, but I'm going to give you 10 things you must do if you want to succeed winning souls. Number 1, I bet in this church building you got a coffee pot. Do you have a coffee pot somewhere? You got a coffee maker. You got coffee grinds. You got a coffee stirrer. You got coffee cups. You got coffee creamer. You got a refrigerator, a microwave. You got a sink. You got soap. You got spoons, forks, knives, and napkins. You got everything you need to open a soup kitchen. And I bet somewhere in this church building, we got laminators, and we got crayons and map colors and paper and laminating machines and die cut machines and scissors. And don't forget the safety scissors. And we got the glue sticks and the glue and the super glue. And we got everything we need to open a school. What I find disturbing in a lot of our churches is the very tools we need to win souls in our community, we don't have them. In fact, I went to one congregation. I walked in. It was an elder, and we were just talking. And brother, I said, would you permit me to role play a little bit? And he said, sure. I said, I want to be one of your members. He said, okay, what do you want? I said, I want to do a Bible study, and I want to know where the equipment is so I can do a Bible study. He said, preacher, he said, I knew you were going to ask that. You follow me. So I followed him down this long hallway. So we're going on, we get to the end of the hallway, there's a door. And he says, it's right in here, preacher. Of course, it was locked. Don't worry. We had the ring of keys. We brought them out. We went through 10 keys. We got in the door. He said, preacher, they're in here somewhere. Ah, there they are in the locker. Of course, it was locked. We got out the ring of keys. That's all right. We went through the keys again, and we opened the locker, and he pulls out a stack of Back of the Bible, and he said, preacher, he said, I told you we were prepared. I said, brother, I got a question for you. I said, I want to know why the materials that church members need to save souls are locked in a room and locked in a locker. He said, oh, we were afraid they might get them. Brethren, isn't that the point? Don't we want them to get them? Don't we want? So if we want to succeed, let me suggest starting out what we need. We need Bibles. You know, we don't have any problem sending them to India, and we send them by the thousands. We need Bibles for Bible studies. I'd suggest maybe like the World Bible School Bible. It's a great little $5 Bible. Get some large print Bibles. Get giant print Bibles. People have trouble seeing. Make sure you have, I'm not talking about your pew Bibles. We need Bibles that people can use for Bible studies. We should have boxes of them. We need to have tools like Open Bible Study, Back to the Bible, Doesn't Matter, Believe the Bible. We need to make sure that our members have the equipment to reach out to lost people. Listen, they're not going to call the Gospel Advocate, and you shouldn't have to call Christian Family Bookstore. for. Brethren, you should have it in the building. We need to have materials for bringing people, visitor bags, new mover baskets. My wife is teaching her ladies right now how to make sure they're prepared to bring people and things you need to get them. We need materials for teaching people how to teach and evangelize, new converts, materials for the community. Number one, get the equipment to do the job. I bet your place of business has all the equipment that you need to do your job. And I would suspect if they didn't have the equipment that they would get it. Because if they don't have the equipment to accomplish their job, they're not going to make it. Number two, put it out there where people can get it. Don't lock it in the preacher's office. Don't put it in the library. Don't put it in some obscure place that no one is going to. Brother, they're not going to dig through a filing cabinet. Put it out there where people can get it. Here's a suggestion. Why don't we have an evangelism table? Somewhere where people they can't help but see it. You got to find a location where people have to trip over it to get out of the building. And you order a tablecloth, really nice, and you start putting it on there, and you start telling the members, listen, if you want to do a Bible study, we got all the equipment you need sitting on the table. We got our back to the Bibles. We got door hangers to hang on doorknobs of your neighbors. We got DVDs, SKU cards if you don't use a DVD player. We've got bookmarks. We've got Believe the Bible, doesn't matter. We have contact cards, and we got everything you need to succeed. Put it out there where the brethren can get it, and they just might use it. But if you hide it in some kind of office, if you tell them go to room 1 to get it, guess what they're not going to do? They're not going to get it. Brother, they're not digging for it. In fact, one preacher said, Rob, he said, man, I heard your message. He said, let me tell you what happened at my church. He said, Rob, I got that table, and I put it in our foyer, and I placed all the materials on it. He said, I came back 2 days later, Rob, all the materials were gone. I said, brother, that's wonderful. The brethren were thirsty. He said, no, Rob, that's not what it was. He said, so I had some more material, and I put more of it on the table, and I went back 2 days later, it was gone. He says, I called one of the elders. I said, brother, I need to know where our evangelism material is disappearing to. He said, well, about that. One of the ladies came through the foyer. Now, when we built this $3 million facility, remember we agreed what went in the foyer? And that gaudy-looking table of yours, they complained, and they said that was not in the agreed format of this foyer, and it doesn't match the decor. We can't have that thing out here, so we decided to put the evangelism material in the coat closet so it won't bother anybody. He said, brother, I was beside myself. He said, I took everything I had just to say yes, sir. So I got in the pulpit and I preached that night on the evangelism material in the coat closet. And I said, brethren, go get it. It's in there. Believe the Bible. Let me tell you how you use it and why you need it. Back to the Bible. Here's why you need it and how you use it. And Rob, I preached that night. And I said, brethren, that coat closet will be open. I'll be standing right next to it. Just go in there and get it. He said, and I walked back and I stood behind that coat closet and I just waited. Guess how many members walked in to get it? None. You put it out of sight, it becomes out of mind very quickly. Friends, may I suggest that in the Church of Christ, if we can't put evangelism materials in our foyer for the brethren to use, we sell the buildings and go home. We're the Church of Christ. We're not a country club. Our job is not to have the best decor in the brotherhood. And I believe that we need to make sure that these materials are available for church members to use. I know that seems so simple. But if we don't have the materials, then we don't put them out there for the brethren to use them, they're not going to use them. Number 3, these are real simple steps. Why don't we train people how to use them? So if you don't train your members how to use the materials, they're not going to use them. You know, a DeWatt drill in the hands of a carpenter is a masterpiece. Put it in a preacher's hands, it becomes a deadly weapon. It's because I don't know what I'm doing with it. And so you've got to train people how to use the tools that are at their disposal. And so, you know, a mechanic is skilled and trained how to use the wrench. A technician is trained and skilled how to use their diagnostic equipment so they can properly fix the broken machine. You're trained in your profession how to succeed. They don't just throw you. How many of you have been to training seminars and maybe even they sent you to another state or a city and they would fly you out? And maybe you work for Toyota and they send you to Japan. Why? So that you can figure out how to do it their way. Everyone in this audience understands that. My dad went to Boeing, I don't know how many times. My dad, he taught. He wrote the book on the 737. He's always out there doing training. Then they send him all over the world. And just maybe for some simple one component, just to know how it works. Because if you don't have the right training, brethren, if we don't train our church members how to use this equipment, they're not going to do it. That session last night, it wasn't enough. I mean, I made it as simple as I could, but most of your church members, they're not going to use back to the Bible unless you walk them through it. You have to walk the members through every page and every blank. Now, we have some suggestions on how to do it. I'm not going to leave you without giving you all the training material, but you've got to train your members, not just a few, not some Monday night special. No, you do it on Sunday morning when you have the maximum people, and you do it during the sermon, and you preach the materials. If you cannot preach back to the Bible, you have a serious problem. But I have found just a few preachers who can't. In fact, they won't. You know why? Brethren, we have some of our churches right now in the kingdom of God that do not believe what's in back to the Bible, and that's a problem. That is foundational. We're talking about the most foundational equipment, the most foundational teaching. I know your preacher has no problems. I know he's committed to those principles. And I thank God for him. And I thank God for this church, because I know you don't. But we have got to teach our members how to do it. So we need to train them. Train them how to evangelize. That's step 3. Step 4. Now we've got to begin looking at the church through an evangelistic lens. Everything becomes evangelistic. We're looking to create an evangelistic culture in our church, an atmosphere of evangelism through which everything can be funneled through it. So we're going to put a funnel in the church, and if it doesn't fit through the evangelistic funnel, it's just not going to be done. I don't want to shut down every good work a church does. That's not what I'm trying to do. So if you want to collect canned goods, collect them. But let's just make sure that there's an evangelistic emphasis behind those canned goods. If we're going to go out there and help the teachers with backpack supplies and give them away, that's fine. Let's make sure there's an evangelistic emphasis behind the turkey giveaway. We are not giving away turkeys just to give away turkeys. We don't give teachers backpack supplies just to take care of this. I know it feels good, but at the end of the day, what do we accomplish? We're not the Lions Club. We're not the Rotary Club. Brethren, we're the Church of Christ. We have one mission, and that's to save souls. So everything we do needs to revolve around reaching souls, just like him. I'm going to give you an example of this very quickly. Brother, we got so much teaching to do. I'm just touching the hem of the garment, but I promise you're not getting rid of me unless your elders say so. I've got a lot of stuff to cover, but I want to give you just a glimpse into what this might look like. Let's just suppose tonight we decided that we were going to reimagine our benevolence work. When I went to school, I was taught there were 3 works of the church. Were you taught that? What are the 3 works of the church, brethren? What are they? Evangelism, edification, benevolence. Now, brethren, I've given this a lot of thought, and I don't like to disagree with brethren that I love, but I'm not so sure there's just one work, and it's called seek and save the lost. And we are benevolent. Why? To solve world hunger? Is that why we're benevolent? Because we're going to solve all the hunger problems in Benton, Arkansas? Is that really the mission of the church, is to feed the poor? Is that really why Jesus came, to take care of world poverty? Brethren, if that's why Jesus came, then why did he say this? The poor will always be with you. He knew he couldn't solve world poverty. And brethren, I don't believe that's why Jesus fed the 5,000. I don't believe that's why Jesus fed the 4,000. I don't believe that's why Jesus performed miracles, just because he could solve medical crises. I think he did those things for another reason, don't you? And so benevolence is not self-serving. It's not just do benevolence to be benevolent so we can be benevolent. Why are we being benevolent? Because benevolence opens the hearts to people so that we can teach them Christ. Is that not true? If you're not willing to help people, isn't it hard to teach them? So with that being thought through, and I've thought a lot about this, and I don't want to disagree with my brethren. I love them, but I'm just not so sure there's one work, and benevolence is authorized. It's a tool. I think it's a tool. It's not a self-ending and self-serving purpose. So let's reimagine benevolence, and let me put this let me give you one way to do it. Stephen's sitting at the office, and the phone rings. Hello, Stephen Ford, Highway Church of Christ. And yes, are you the preacher here? Yes, I'm the preacher. Do you guys pay light bills? Oh, yes, we pay light bills. Do you pay car payments? Yes, we pay car. Do you help people with gas? Oh, yes, we help people with gas. Do you help people with food? Yes, we help people with food too. He said, do you pay off mortgages? Oh, yes, we pay them off all the time. Whatever they say, I say yes. And let me explain. Brother, when they ask when we do that, when we help them with their house payment or whatever else it is they need help, this is what I say. I said, sir, you're right. We do help people. And I said, let me tell you when we help them. We help them every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and we can't wait to see you. We help everybody at 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights, and we're looking for you. I'll be standing by. And as soon as you get, well, sir, I just don't drive anymore. That's okay. We have people who will come and get you. And we cannot wait to meet you. And when they walk into the building, guess who should be standing by? Guess who should be standing by? We should have brothers standing by with a set of Back to the Bible, waiting to take them to room number 1. And if you can't do a Bible study during Bible class, maybe we shouldn't even be meeting. We ought to be doing Bible studies with sinners during Bible class. Now that's thinking outside the box, isn't it? Man, the first time someone suggested we could do a Bible study during Bible class, I had to stop and think and make sure it wasn't unscriptural, because we'd never done that before. And I thought to myself, can we do Bible studies during? I guess we can. We can do Bible study. So what we've done at Jacksonville is we just take them to a room and we do Bible studies with them. And so if they want help, they're going to come on Sunday morning. So I have a sneaky suspicion here at Highway, you get a benevolent request every now and then. I just noticed where you're located, right off the interstate. All right. So, well, sir, I need to get going. I don't think I'll be here Sunday. Well, there are some county services in the area. I'm sure they can help you. But our benevolence starts Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and we can't wait to meet you. And we cannot wait to get to know you. And you're going to find that benevolence is an excellent prospecting tool for evangelism. That's what we're finding. And by the way, all the charlatans who are trying to rip you off, they won't come for a Bible study. You know why? Because they don't have to. They'll just go down to the next church and get help from them. And they'll rip them off. And they're going down to the next one. But people who are really understanding, and they really understand that there's a true need in their life, and they realize that you're willing to help them because you say, listen, I'll help you. But we're going to start by helping your soul. We're going to start by giving you some spiritual nourishment. Her name's Kim. Kim calls the building and she says, hey, I've just moved into the area. I don't know anybody and I don't even have a car. And I need some help. Could you help me? And we said, Miss Kim, they said, we'd like to help you. Well, that's great. She says, well, when can you help me? And they said, we do that on Sunday mornings. She said, well, I don't have a car. They said, we'll come get you. So we went over and got Kim and took her to the church building and spent some time with her and got to know a little bit more about her needs. We took her to Dollar General that very day and got her some groceries and got over to her apartment. It was mold infested, black mold everywhere. I said, Kim, you notice that there's black mold? She says, is that what that is? I said, it is, Kim. And I said, Kim, do you have any health problems? Ever since I moved, I have. And I said, who do you rent this from? She says, the housing authority. I said, just give me 24 hours. So I called the housing authority and I said, what you're doing is illegal. And I said, there's black mold everywhere. In 1 month, they had a brand new place waiting for her. And Kim says, well, Mr. Rob, she says, I can't move myself. I can't. I said, I understand. I said, the church will move you. And so we got an email out to the men, and we packed her up, and we moved her. We moved her to the new place. We set her bed back up, moved her dress, doing all that stuff. And as we're doing all that, Kim's been coming to church, and we've been prospecting her. I said, hey, Kim, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? She said, Rob, it's the nicest church I've ever attended. I said, would you like to know more about it? She said, I sure would. I just so happen to have these little booklets right here. Kim, why don't we just sit down and begin right now? What do you think she did 3 weeks later? She said she's faithful. She's more faithful than some of our members who've been there for 30 years. She loves that church. Let me get to number 5. This is the most important step I'll talk about this evening. Brethren, if you don't get this step, if we don't master this right here, then nothing else we're going to do matters. So does anybody in our audience tonight own a business of some kind, even a small business? Anybody here have a little business they run and operate? Let's just suppose you had even a lawn mowing service. And you had a lawn mowing service. What's the one thing you need if you have a lawn mowing service, and without this one thing, and it's the same thing that the Walmart needs. And thank you. You need customers. What's the number one thing a church needs to be a church? People. So if we don't have contacts, if we don't have customers, brother, we're dead in the water. Now, in order to get customers and contacts, Walmart knows exactly how to do it. They strategically locate. They know how to advertise and promote. And they're going to make sure everybody knows where they're at. And if you're going to have maybe even a body shop, and you're going to offer you're going to have a mechanic shop. So if you're going to have a automotive repair shop, people need to know you're there. Hail damage. That's right. They need to. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and so they need to know that where you're located, right? Because if they don't know you're there, they're not coming. So they got to promote. Does the community need to know the Church of Christ is there? And if they don't know the Church of Christ is here, are they coming? So we're going to have to make every effort to make sure people know we're here, because we need contacts. Jesus said, many are called and few are chosen. What does that mean? Many are called, few. I never really thought about that verse with any depth until recently. I was sitting there and I said, that verse is deeper than I thought. Many, is that a strategy for success? Let me think about it. Many are called. You got to call many for few to be chosen. So you got to call a lot of people, don't you, to get a few? If you want to get a few chosen, in other words, we want to find a few people to obey the gospel, do we call few? No, if you call few, how many are chosen? Almost none, right? So I'm sitting there with a businessman this 2 weeks ago in Paintsville, Kentucky. He owned a Hallmark store. He's an elder. I said, brother, how many customers need to walk through your door every day for you to make it? I said, is one enough? He said, no. I said, is 5 going to work? He said, no. He said, man, I need 50 people a day to walk through my doors. I'm not going to make it. I said, you got it down to a science, don't you? Jesus said, many are called, few are chosen. How many people do we need to, how many contacts do we need in the local church in order to call a few? We need many. How many is that? I don't know, but I know it's more than one. So I'm talking to a preacher recently, and I said, brother, how many contacts do you have right now at your local church that you're working with? He said, I've got 2. I said, I have a sneaky suspicion in a town of 2 million people, San Antonio, Texas, many is not 2. I said, you're not going to make it, brother. I said, you have a contact problem. You don't have enough contacts. It's not that we don't have the ability to get them. I'm going to prove to you tonight that you do. In fact, in this church are thousands of contacts. You just have to access them. And if you don't access them, you're not going to have them. But I promise you, in your pews tonight, even in this small group here, are hundreds of contacts. Everybody pull out their phone just for a minute. Everybody get their phone out. Let me show you how this works. Pull your phone out and go to your address book. Go to your contact and just start scrolling down. Let me ask you this question. How many of you have 5 people on your contact list that are lost? Anybody? Raise your hand. How many of you have 10 people that are lost? How many of you have 50 people in your contacts right now that are lost? Brethren, we have hundreds of contacts right now in our pews. We know people right now that are lost, and if we don't create contacts, then we cannot evangelize. It is the first thing you've got to do as a church. Now, I'm going to give you 6 ways from Sunday to get that done. I'm going to give you a lot of different ways to find sinners, but if we don't do that, then we are not going to evangelize. I'm trying to put this in different formats. If this church had 300 sets of Back to the Bible, and they were fully trained, and every one of you became an expert at using Back to the Bible, what good are they if you have no one to teach? So it's not good enough just to train a church how to use Back to the Bible, is it? Now, do you need to know how to use Back to the Bible? Sure. Man, if you got people coming in your store and you don't know how to use the cash register, that's not going to be good. Right? So we need to know that. But you can have the most sophisticated cash register in the face of the planet, and you don't got a customer. That's not going to work either. So there's no magic bullet. When an eldership or a preacher calls me, and I've had this question, preacher, what's your magic bullet? They don't understand. They don't get it. There is no magic bullet. There's not one thing. It's multiple things. But this here, brethren, you have got to do it. Now, how do you do it? Well, I'll give you several ways to do it. Number one, I don't know a better way in the brotherhood to help people learn about the Church of Christ than properly using house to house, heart to heart. And before you judge this, I want you to hear me. 9 out of 10 churches who use house to house, heart to heart use it wrong. I did not know that when I started. When I started going around training churches, I assumed that everybody knew how to use this tool. I assumed wrong. This is what I found. I would take their house to house, heart to heart. I would call the phone number on the front, and I would call it. And I started doing this in elders meetings. I said, brethren, give me your house to house. They give it. I said, let me call that number. Oh, Rob, you don't need to call that. Why not? No one will answer. Well, if you're going to have a business and the phone number you give the public doesn't get a human being, do you think you're going to be successful? Brethren, the phone number that advertises your church needs to reach a human being, not an empty church office. I would suggest it reaches your preachers. I would suggest it reaches an elder. I would suggest that you have someone 24/7 that can contact. If a sinner wants to get in touch with you, they don't need to hear this. Well, we man the office from 8 to 2, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's not what they need to hear. Or they don't need to hear this. Sorry, wrong number, been disconnected. We get that on most of our house-to-house issues. The phone number doesn't even get a person. So what we have to do is, again now, take every tool and learn how to use it properly. We have to learn what do you put on that to get people. Now, I've got a lot more to say about this, but when you do it right, brethren, I've been doing this for 20 years. Every single year I've used house to house, heart to heart, I've baptized somebody. In fact, I'll just be honest, at Jacksonville, it's a gold mine. I'm constantly getting contacts through this publication, but they know exactly how to use it. This is Ellen. This lady here, name is Ellen. Now watch this. I'm sitting in the pew, and I've gotten home, trained 3 churches out in Texas. My wife went to go visit her mom with my children, and I'm there by myself. I look behind me, and to the corner, there's this lady sitting there, and I don't know her. So Alan finishes his sermon, and I follow Alan Webster back. I said, Alan, who's that lady? He said, Rob, she's visiting this morning. I said, exactly who I wanted. So I moved in behind her. Now I'm sitting behind her, closing prayer. She turns around. There I am. I said, hello, ma'am. I said, my name's Rob. Are you visiting this morning? She said, well, I sure am. I said, well, are you from the community? She said, I just live down the street. I said, oh, wonderful. I said, what's your name? She said, well, my name's Ellen. I said, Ellen, are you by yourself? She said, well, my husband was coming. He got a little ill this morning, so he stayed home. And I said, well, Ellen, what'd you think about our service today? She said, it was good. You know your preacher? His name's Alan. He loves the Bible. I said, oh, he does love the Bible. And she said, I've been looking for that. And I said, well, wonderful. I said, Perry, I said, Ellen, I wish my wife could meet you, and I'd love to meet your husband. She said, well, my husband needs to hear this. Do y'all have an evening service? I said, we sure do. Brethren, may I suggest if we want the brethren to be more spiritual, and I don't know what your protocol is here, and I don't mean to offend, but cutting down worship services does not make us more spiritual. It doesn't help the church grow. The more we worship, the better we are, not the worse off we are. And there seems to be a trend, and I don't know why, I don't know where it comes from, to worship less. I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm so glad we had an evening worship service. So I just looked at her and I said, yes, ma'am, we got one tonight, and we'd love you to come back. She said, you know what, I'm going to bring my husband. I said, well, good, I'll be waiting for him. So Nicole comes back home, and they walk in, sure enough. We sit over there with them. After the service, we're talking, and I said, hey, Ellen, this is my wife, Nicole. This is my husband, Perry. We got this custom. We like to take visitors out to eat. Could we take, Perry, what's your favorite restaurant? He said, well, it's kind of expensive, Rob. It's Afina's. I said, hey, done deal. Let's go to Afina's. I said, my treat. Wow. He said, man, Rob, if I'm going to Afina's, I want to eat, and I don't feel real good tonight. Can I take a rain check? I said, next Sunday, I'll make reservations if you'll come. He said, we'll be here. So next Sunday, sure enough, they came back, and I'd made my reservations. After services, we come over to Afina's. We sit down. Brethren, I could care less about the lasagna. I have on mission. I want a Bible study. I will get it. We just got to probe. Now, what that means is I'm going to find the area of agreement. Hey, Perry, you like NFL football? He said, man, no, I don't like that stuff anymore. He said, that's disrespectful. And I said, me too. I don't like it anymore either. He said, Perry, do you like a NBA basketball? I said, man, I don't know, Rob. It's just not like it used to be. I liked MJ. I said, me too. I said, boy, he could play. I said, Perry, what is it you like? He said, Rob. He said, go Alabama. Oh, no. Go Alabama. And I said, if I have to like Alabama football to get a Bible study, so be it. I said, Nick Saban's a good coach. I said, man, they got a statue out there in front of the college stadium. And Perry, you've had a terrible year. You know what a terrible year is for Alabama football? That means you don't get to the championship game. That's what it means. And 2 losses, they didn't make it. It was going to be Clemson and LSU. Y'all remember that about just over a year ago? And so I said, Perry, I got an idea. I said, tomorrow we're having a football party at the house. What was that? That was my wife kicking me because she didn't know that. And I said, we want you to come and watch the football game. And I said, my wife's going to make those little, what are they, pigs in the blanket. You roll the croissant rolls around them. You get the mustard. We're going to have chips and dip, and we're going to have sausage balls. And I said, Perry and Ellen, y'all just come watch it with us. And he said, well, that'd be great. He said, we'd love to do that. Brethren, I want you to listen to this. They came over to the house that night. It was amazing. And we were talking, right? We're watching that game. Game gets out of hand. LSU's just getting blown away blown away Clemson. I said, Perry, can I ask you a question? Why did you come? Like, why did you choose here? He said, Rob, he said, several years ago, he said, we moved here 20 years ago. He said, we started getting this publication called House to House, Heart to Heart. Rob, since we've gotten it, every time we get it, it's about the Bible. Now, I got to tell you something about our church. We're Methodists. Rob, our church does not follow the Bible anymore. He says, and we're looking for a church that respects the Bible. And I said, Perry, would you like to know more about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? He said, I sure would. Guess what happened 3 weeks later? 3 weeks later, we baptized them. How did we get to them? Because of House to House, Heart to Heart. We would have never met them. You have to project your church into your communities. And you've got to advertise and promote your church because of the people surrounding this area do not know. If they do not know you're here, they're not coming. I want to go to this next one. You've got to promote your events on the backside. Now, what's going to bring people to this church? Let me tell you what won't bring them. You can say, Glenn Colley's coming to do a gospel meeting. Do you think the community is going to come because Glenn Colley comes to do a gospel meeting? You pick B.J. Clark. How about if you said, we're going to do a marriage enrichment seminar? And if you would like to learn more about marriage, come. Brother, why do you think, how about if you did this? We're going to have a trunk or treat, and we're going to give out candy to the community. Do you think they'd come? How about if you did a vacation Bible school? Do you think they would come? How about if you did a local community event? Do you think they would come? Like maybe not hot dogs and hamburgers. That won't bring them. How about a shrimp boil and alligator sausage? How about deer steak? I mean, how about something how about chicken fried steak? I mean, they're coming for that. I'm just telling you, they're going to come for that. And so this is important. We have to promote events in the community that draw them. All right? Not that draw you, but draw them. So we can help you with that. Now, inside House to House, Heart to Heart are these special offers. Brother, if you're looking at that little, are you seeing that little battery thing right there? I can't fix it. So if it dies, we'll just keep going. My wife has the cube, and I'm going to let her have the cube. All right? And but I think we might just last. So inside, we're going to promote things like fill out this little quiz, and we'll send you a bookmark, or we'll send you some marriage material. And in fact, you can even select what you want. Now watch what happens. Hello? Yes, this is Deb Rice, Secretary of Jacksonville Church of Christ. Oh, yes, the marriage material? Yes, ma'am, we'll be glad to get it for you. Oh, yes, ma'am, give me your address. So Deb calls me, she says, Rob, we've got somebody who wants the marriage material. I said, should I mail it to him, Rob? Listen carefully. No. And I said it politely. And Deb says, well, Rob, we always mail that material. I said, I know, that's why we don't baptize anybody. I said, just give me the address and I will physically give it to them. I want to meet them. So I go to their house and I meet them. Her name is Brenda. Brenda's moved into the community. Brenda's just gotten married, and Brenda wants marriage material. This is Brenda. She opens the door. My wife's sitting on the other side, standing on the other side of me. I always bring my wife or a child. Men do not go door knocking without a child or a woman for ethical reasons, but number two, for success reasons. When you knock on the door, they're not answering. You scare them to death. Just look at us, men. They're not answering. That woman, they're not going to answer. But if you bring your wife or bring a son or a young person, listen, they're going to answer the door. She answers the door, right? And I said, ma'am, my name is Rob. This is my wife, Nicole. And she said, well, my name's Brenda. I said, ma'am, I'm from house to house, heart to heart. Yes. Yeah, I asked for some marriage material. I said, yes, ma'am, I just wanted to deliver it to you. Well, you know, you could have mailed it. I said, well, ma'am, I could have met you if I did that. Well, that's nice. I said, ma'am, how long have you lived here? Oh, about a month. I said, have you just got married? She said, I sure did about a month ago. And I said, I'm glad to be here. Do you have a church home? Well, not yet. Then where do you go to church, sir? I said, well, across the campus of JSU there's a church. Oh, I think I've seen that church. And she said, sir, can I ask you a quick question? I said, sure. Do you know anything about the Bible? I said, oh, just a little bit. She says, good, because my husband knows nothing about the Bible. Daniel, get off the couch. That man's been on the couch ever since he came home from work. I don't know what he does all day. Get off the couch, Daniel. There are people here to see you. And so Daniel comes over so Brenda brings him on over here, and she says, Daniel, this is Rob and Nicole. They're from house to house, heart to heart, and they're going to teach you the Bible. Brethren, you could have blown me over. And I said, Brenda, when would you like us to start? She says, what about tomorrow? I said, Nicole, we'll bring the chocolate chip cookies you always eat. And do you know from that one knock on the door, we baptized 7 people? If you don't have a target list, you'll never hit it. I believe one of our problems in the Church of Christ is that we don't have targets. We don't have specific people that we're working on. What we're doing is some at-large, we'll just be a good example and hope they come. That doesn't work. I need names of people. I need addresses. Brethren, I will literally go to them. I'm going to prospect them, not by myself. We're going to do it together. It's amazing what happens when you have targets. So we're going to go do a little door knocking. It's not all my eggs, it's one egg. And it's not for everybody, but we're going to do some of it. And every time we knock doors, I find somebody. Every time I knock a door, when we do it right, now, we're not going to knock doors to necessarily invite them to church. That's a goalpost that's way too far down the field. You're not going to hit it. It's not practical. We're not necessarily going to ask them to do a Bible study. Once again, you're talking about a Hail Mary. That's probably not going to happen. But you know what you can do? You can set success to be this. Hey, my name's Rob, my wife Nicole. We're just Christians in the community, and we're praying for people today. And we wanted to know if you had any prayer requests, maybe needs in your life or your family's life, and we're just offering to pray for people right at the door. Really? Yes, ma'am. She said, my dad, he's back in the, he moved in about a month ago, and he's having a lot of health problems. And do you mind praying for my dad? I said, sure, I don't mind. I said, what's his name? And what's your name? And I'm going to fill out a contact card. Do you know what that's called? Do you know what that is right there? That's called success. We have defined success as getting a Bible study or inviting people to church. I have news for you. They're not going to do the Bible study, and they're not coming to church. Brethren, before we get to the Bible study step, maybe we should establish a contact. That's what this step does. See, we skip about 3 layers. And when we do that, we shortchange ourselves. I'll give you 4 ways to do this in the training material. We have about a 35% success rate at getting contacts and prospecting them when we do this. I'll share that with you in our material. How many of you have heard of New Movers? New Movers is really, really good stuff. New Movers means that we have access to everyone who moves into your area. And I'll just give me a perimeter, 5, 10 miles, 15 miles. Just give me a perimeter and I'll fill it up for you. So at house to house, we can give you the name and address of everybody who moves into your community. Now, if you owned a body shop and I came up to you and said, hey, brother, I've got a company that I work for, and for $5 a month, I'll give you the name and address of everybody that moves within 10 miles of your body shop. Would you like that information? Would that be worth something to you? Why do you want that information? I'll tell you why. Because people are most likely to change churches when they move. That's why. Because a couple of generations ago, when a couple or a family or an individual moved from one city to another city, they usually stayed with that same denomination. Those days are over. Notice this. I don't care what church they were in the last town. Brethren, I want them to visit the church of Christ, because that's going to give us the best opportunity to sit down with them and study the Word of God. What if you as a church approached every person who moved within 10 miles, 5 miles, you said it, of this church building, and maybe you approached them with a new mover basket, and you welcomed them to the community, and you were the first church that came to their door. And your ladies right now are being taught by my wife how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. They've never done this before. They love to shop, but now in the name of the Lord, they go to the Dollar Tree, and they're going to get a shopping list, and they're going to put together baskets just like this. It's going to cost you $10 for a basket. You deliver 10 or 15 of those every month. You go to the door of people who move into your community, and you say, hello, my name is Rob. This is my wife, Nicole. Welcome to the community. We've lived here for 9 years, and we have 2 children, and you bring them with you. And my wife and my daughters have made you some cookies, and we'd like to welcome you. And my wife has made you some cheesecake, and we'd like to welcome you. My wife has made you chocolate cake, and we'd like to welcome you. What do you think's going to happen eventually? You think you eventually might find some gold? A prospector knows that most pay dirt he puts through the sluice box doesn't give gold. He knows that. Many are called. You got to put a lot of dirt through the sluice box to get gold. Brethren, you're going to have to go. You need contacts. Now, we're building on this. Let me keep going. So now we're going to put together a robust card sending ministry where we get the entire church involved in sending cards to people who are sick, people who just moved into the community, and now we have their address to name. And we went to their door, and they were very flattered. And they said, that's a really kind gesture. And we turned them into the congregational list, and we start sending cards, not one card with 10 signatures. There's always a penny pincher in the group that tries to save money. Don't listen to this person, because if you do it that way, it does not work. You have to send 10 cards, not one with 10 signatures. You have to overwhelm them with cards. You got to send 20 cards. Everybody sends cards. And you're going to fill them with so much love that they can't resist you. And so the church is going to prospect them. That's why they're called prospectors. What do prospectors do? They prospect, right? That's why someone said, why do you call them prospects? I call contacts prospects because that moves them to stage 2. Stage 1 is contacts. Stage 2 is I begin to prospect them. I don't prospect every contact. Every contact you have in your contact list, I'm not going to prospect them all at one time, but I will take one. Do you have anybody on your contact list right now that's sick? I want their name. Because we're going to put them on our congregational list, and we're going to overwhelm them with love. They're going to get more love than they have ever received in their entire life. Brethren, this kind of organized, offensive effort by a church, it pays off. When someone says, Rob, how does a church baptize 12 people in 3 months? Just like this. That's how they do it. It's not because they have they're just better, they're just more talented. No. It's not because they have more love for the Lord. No. It's because they're going to put so much pay dirt through their sluice box, and they're going to prospect and prospect and prospect. And eventually, down in the crevices, they're going to see something shiny. And they're going to start collecting it. Cards, very effective. This is Bettina. You know how we got the Bible study? Because of you. It wasn't because of me. I didn't send one card. I tell the church, the elders used to let me get up in the pulpit when I was home more often, and they said, Rob, help us, help us learn how to evangelize. I said, everybody send a card to Bettina. Everybody get your pencils out. And this is before we even organized it. And I said, everybody just send her cards. And we went to Bettina's house, and when she realized where I was from, Jacksonville Church of Christ, when she realized, come on in, look at these cards. She had cards all over her apartment complex. Give me just 2 weeks. And we were kind. We were taking her to church. We even replaced a broken chair that she had. And I remember sitting there one time. I said, Bettina, I said, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? What do you think she said? She said, they're the nicest people I've ever met. I said, well, would you like to know more about it? She said, I would. That's the green booklet. That's study number 1. It's amazing what happens when we prospect people. I got to tell you a little bit more about Bettina. I'm in study number 3. I'll probably never see this again in my life. But I'm in study number 3, and I asked her, I said, Bettina, would you read Mark 16:16 for me? And she looked at that verse, and she said, oh, She said, I've known that. She's a Baptist. I've known that verse all my life. My pastor has told me what it is. I said, what does it say there, Bettina? She said, he that believes is saved and baptized. That's how she read the verse. And I stopped and I said, Bettina, would you read that again for me? Yeah, he that believes is saved and baptized. And I picked up her Bible. King James Version. I know that's not what it says. And I said, Bettina, try again. But read it one word at a time. She said, he that believes and is baptized. And she did it twice. And she looked at me and she said, Rob, that's not what my pastor told me that verse said. I bet not. I said, Alan, can you help me? We need to baptize. How did we get to study? Because of you. If you don't do your job, I can't do mine. You prospected her heart. The church overwhelmed her. Those widow ladies who don't think, your wife that doesn't think she can do anything for the Lord, I bet she can write cards. I bet those widow ladies can do it. I bet your young people can do it. Let him make a card and send it. That will get the place of prominence in the house. I promise you that. When a 7-year-old writes a card and colors it and makes it, and they can tell. I mean, that takes the place of prominence right there. That little boy thought about me. When they have 40 cards sitting around their house, 60 cards sitting around their house, do you know how easy it is for a Stephen Ford to say, would you like to know more about Highway Church of Christ? But if they don't know who you are, and then he says, would you like to know more about Highway? Why? I mean, who cares? See, that's called prospecting. It's stage 2. All right, that's visitor bags. And this is a big one right here, brethren. This is huge. Because I bet y'all have visitors. Do you ever have visitors come? All right, so this is really good stuff. So when a visitor comes in, and unless I've already told you this privately, I don't want you to answer. But if you don't know the answer to this, I've not told you the answer, I want to ask a question. What's the number one thing a visitor wants to do when they come into a church building? Barna did a study among religious people, and they said, what's the number one thing that people want to do when they come into a church building? What is it? What's the number one thing they want? Feel welcome. What? Rare that someone gets it right. Very rare. You're a rare breed. All right? Because most people don't get that answer. It is. You're right. They want to sit down. They do not want the welcome wagon. They do not want to have someone lead them to the bathroom. They do not want to fill out paperwork. And they don't want Gabby Gossip telling them about the preacher's problems. They don't want Mr. Grumpy to growl at them. They just want to sit down. So let them sit down. When a visitor walks in this building, you should have greeters that say, welcome to Highway. That's it. You know, maybe identify yourself. Let them sit in the pew. Now, we're going to train you to be on our visiting team. I don't know that we will, but you might be that person, you and your wife, whoever, and this is your job. Your job is to locate visitors when you walk in the building. That's your only job. Your job is not to look for leaks in the roof. Your job is not to make sure we have enough crayons. Your job is not to make sure of whatever else it is. You have one job. Now, we're going to assign this to 4 or 5 families. They all have the same job. The job is to find visitors. Now, let's say you're the visitor. And my wife and I, there's one right there. So we're going to come in here and we're going to sit down. We're going to sit either in front of you, beside you. We're going to sit. I'll demonstrate. Let me demonstrate. All right, here's what we're going to do. My wife said, hey, my name's Rob. What's your name? Adam, nice to meet you. My wife, Nicole. And who's you got with you here, Adam? Hey, nice to meet you guys. You live in the community here, Adam? Well, nice to have you. Adam, is this your first time to visit with us? Well, we're so glad you're here. Adam, I've got something for you. Right now, my wife is teaching your wives how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. Once again, they're going shopping. You don't want to do this, but they will love this. This will cost about $6 at the Dollar Tree. Send them. Do not do it for them. Let the widows come together on a Monday and go shopping. It will tickle them to death, and you need them to do this. That's it. Let them put together, that's all right. Let them put together the visitor bag. Let them put it together. Once the visitor bag is put together, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to hand it to you. And I'm going to say, hey, we've got something for you. This is made by our ladies, and we just want to give it to our visitors. And there's some pens and pencils and various sundry things inside. And we're just glad you're here. Oh, by the way, we're a card sending church. Can I get your name and address so I could send you some cards? How many times do they give it to me? Every time. I just given them a gift. So now I got their name and address, right? What's the number one responsibility we have when a visitor comes? Name and address, contact. Remember, that's stage one. I just accomplished stage one. Now, if I can get to stage two, I'm going to. All right, so I'm going to try stage two. We're going to go through the worship assembly. We're going to finish it. I'm going to look back, hey, there's this really good place called the Firewood or Wood Fire Grill down here. It's really good. Could my wife and I treat y'all to lunch? How many people are going to say no to a $12 a plate lunch for free? I mean, how many people are going to say no to that? So that's stage two. That's called prospecting. I'm prospecting you now. But now listen, if I'm going to prospect somebody, it's not just, I don't want to feed them, right? What do I want? What do I really want with this guy? I want a what? I'm not so sure I'm the guy that does that. Hey, Stephen, would you and Carlisa like to go with us? I've got this visiting family over here. Would you eat with us? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit them right next to you, and I'm going to kind of let him start easing in. And I'm going to kind of eat. I've done my job already. Now, the next time that y'all go do something, it'll be with them. And I'm going to look for the next visitor. I'm prospecting. He's going to do a Bible study. You're working together as a team. Now, we do this all the time at Jacksonville. And we baptize people. That's how, when someone says, how do you get 17 baptisms? That's how. Because that right there is the number one source. That's the number one source for contacts. You got visitors coming in. So, brother, I'm going to be painfully honest with you men in this room. And it's painful. My family visits a lot of churches, sometimes unannounced. Because I finish a seminar like on a Sunday morning, I'm finished, and I'm traveling home. I'm anywhere. So Sunday night, I'm going to look for a Church of Christ, right? So I roll into a church, and my family walks in, and they don't know who we are. And we sit down, and we stand up, and we leave. And do you know how many times a church says, welcome, shakes our hand, and gets contact information? Well, I may get a greeting, but I have yet to walk into a church that got my contact information. So we're letting visitors walk into our churches and leave, and we don't even know where they live. We don't know where they're at. We don't know how to get in contact with them. And so we have literally allowed a prospect to come into our midst, and we don't know how to contact them. Brethren, that should not happen. So Keith Ritchie is our new preacher at Jacksonville. Alan Webster is teaching full-time at the Memphis, or part-time at the Memphis School preaching. So Keith Ritchie, so it was his first Sunday, and I look back, and there's this fella here with the gray shirt, right here back in front of my son, this guy right here. So that would be where the emails were sitting. It was Lindsay and Lindsay and Cameron. So they're sitting there. I don't know them, right? So Keith is our new preacher. He doesn't know a member from a visitor, right? Doesn't know. Hey, Eric, I've been gone for 3 weeks. There's a visitor back there. Who are they? He looks back. Oh, yeah, they've been visiting. Rob, while you've been gone. I said, man, great. I mean, that just whets my appetite. I said, do we have the contact information? Oh, ooh. I said, Rob, I forgot to get that. I said, Eric, that's your job. So I just go to the next person. I said, hey, who do we got back here? Well, I don't know. Cameron, Carmen, Michael, I don't know. I said, do we have the contact information? Well, Rob, we don't have it yet. I said, what were we waiting for? Well, we were waiting for you to come back home, Rob. My blood pressure rose 15 points. So at that point, I'm a little bit agitated because that shouldn't be happening. They know better. We've trained them, at least I thought. So I walk back to the guy. Sir, my name's Rob. I'm a member here. Are you visiting? Well, I've been visiting for a few weeks. I said, what's your name? He said, my name's Cameron. This is my wife, Lindsay, our 1-year-old. I said, well, man, we're glad you're here. I said, y'all from the local area? He said, sure. I said, man, I got something for you. So I went and got the visitor bag, gave it to him. He said, well, that's really nice. And that's a Bible, pens, and notebooks, and candies. That's really nice. And what's this? Oh, the ladies, one of the widow ladies, she knits that for everybody. Well, that's really nice. That's a scrubber, isn't it? And hey, by the way, Cameron, we send visitors cards to thank them for visiting. No form letters from the secretary. Personal cards. I said, can I get your name? Sure, you can have it. Now, I've accomplished mission one. What's mission one? Contact. Right? Contact. If I don't get the address and phone number, is that a contact? No, it's not a contact. So I've accomplished step one. Now I'm going to go to step two. Keith Ritchie. He was literally up here. Hey, Keith, I know you don't know a difference between a member and a visitor. That's a visitor back there. Keith has been through our school twice. He knows exactly what to do. I hand him the contact card. He says, I got this, Rob. He walks back to Cameron. He looks at Cameron. He says, hey, I understand you guys are visiting this morning. He said, yeah. He said, you know what? I'm kind of visiting too. I'm the new preacher. Really? And everybody keeps telling me there's this restaurant down here called Baja. It's really good. I don't know anybody. Could we take y'all to eat? Because we'd like to have a friend. Sure, you can take me out to eat. That's step 2. That's called prospecting. Guess what step 3 is? Bible study. Keith is eating dinner. He looks at him. He says, do you guys have a church home? No. Do y'all know much about Churches of Christ? No. Would you like to know more? Sure. Well, would y'all like to get together maybe Tuesday and have dinner? Maybe we'll talk about the church? Love to do that. 3 weeks later, he baptized the whole family. Brethren, that's not an anomaly. The church, in the meantime, sends cards, lots of cards. Like they're getting like 30 and 40 cards a week. So they're overwhelmed with love. We're taking them out to dinner. So this process works. It works really well with visitors. Get your Evangelism Simplified guidebook out, and so this won't be difficult because everything I'm talking about is here. Let's go to page number 122. Everybody got 122? All right, so we got to produce contacts. That's the number 5. And so we've looked at cards, we looked at meals. By the way, McDonald's won't cut it, right? You're not taking them to McDonald's. And we got to take them somewhere where they're going to enjoy a nice meal. Really, I want them in my home, but that's hard to do with the first meeting. It's easier to do with the second one, all right? So let's look at this. How about let's look at page 123. See that chart right there? Let's look at that chart together. All right. What's the purpose of the church, Will? Okay. Make known to the world the manifold wisdom of God. It's to seek people. It's to get, that's the center cog. Everybody see the gear in the center? That gearbox, this is a gearbox. All right, there's gears all around the main gear. All right, the main gear is moved when we seek and save the lost. Ephesians 3, 9, and 10. To this intent, that now unto principalities and powers in heavenly places, it might be made known by the church the manifold wisdom of God. That's the purpose of the church. Now, let's just suppose that we focus all of our efforts to the purpose. So everything becomes purpose-driven. All right, so we're going to focus on, do y'all have anybody that sits in your pews on Sundays and Wednesdays that are not Christians? That they come, but they're never obeyed the gospel? If you're the typical church, you do. So we're going to focus on those people. We're going to develop a plan to get them. Then we're going to also focus on people that are on our card list. Then we're going to focus on visitors. Then we're going to use door knocking. Then we're going to use house to house, heart to heart properly. Then we're going to use new movers. Then we're going to use digital and social media, and we're going to drive traffic to this church. And there are ways you can do that. Then we're going to use benevolence. And if we do all of this, if we use every resource we have to reach lost people, what should be happening here? We should be doing what? Baptizing people, right? It's result driven. So this schematic here kind of gives me a visual picture of how everything works together so that we can accomplish our mission. Let's look at page 122. So we got to produce content. Look at page number 6, populate. What does that mean? Well, we got to populate a contact list. Now, once you have contacts, what do you need to do with those contacts? You got to write them down. They got to be written down somewhere. So we're going to teach you how to do that. There's got to be 2 kind of lists. The first list is the individual list. Everybody's going to be given an individual list at this church. We're going to give it to you. Then there's going to be the congregational list. That's the list that everybody's working on. Now, let me try to make this. I want to make this really simple, and I want you to kind of see a big picture. In your contact list might be 20 or 30 people that are lost. For you to try to reach 20 or 30 people that are lost is very difficult by yourself. But if you were to give the church one of those names, and you were to give the church a name, and you were to give a church a name, and then the whole church, all 150 of you, tried to work on your friend. So it's 150 to 1. I like those odds. The whole church is going to try to convert them. It's called congregational evangelism. And so instead of you by yourself trying to convert them, we're going to get everybody trying to convert them. So that means we're going to be sending cards, mowing lawns, washing cars, taking food. We're going to be visiting. We're going to overwhelm them with love. And we're going to do that for about 4 weeks. And after 4 weeks, we're going to see if any movement has been made. If no movement has been made, we're going to put them in the broad category. Broad is the way that leads to life. Many there be that go in thereat. Is everybody you reach out to going to be saved? But Jesus said, narrow is the way that leads to life. Few there be that find it. Many are called few. He keeps using that term. Are there few people in your contact list that we probably could reach? Yeah. Are there a few people you know that are sinners that we probably can reach if we've tried? Yes. So here's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to find out who they are. And in order to do that, brethren, we have to have and populate a list. We have to have names. We need to write them down. And we need to focus on them. Let me tell you a hunting story real quick, and I'm about done, by the way. Here's my hunting story. Todd Clifford is an avid hunter and a preacher. He lives in Alabama. And Todd invited Jared and I to come out. I was going to do a seminar. He said, boys, bring your guns. He said, and make sure you have your license. He says, I got deer everywhere. Todd's got a lot of land. So he puts us in 2 tree stands. He said, it's not if you'll see deer, it's just when you'll see them. I said, what do you mean? He said, you'll see them. It says, will it be legal to shoot? They always come out. I said, man, that's pretty good. So we're in the tree stands, and I got my rifle, and I got my .243, and Jared, I think he had his 30-06, and we're sitting there looking, you know. And y'all know what happens when the sun starts going down to a scope? Anybody go out and hunt? What happens to your scope? The black. Remember the black it starts doing this, and you have a hard time zeroing in on your target. And so I couldn't see a thing. All of a sudden, here they come. It's a herd of deer. I mean, I'm talking a herd of deer come right in front of me, and I'm doing this, you know, come on, man, please, oh, please work. You know, I'm looking, and all I see are brown blobs. Do you shoot? Nope. No, because I didn't really have a target, did I? I was just out there shooting at something, hoping I'd hit it. That's dangerous. Brethren, if you do that in the church and evangelism, it doesn't work. You have to have a target. I want to know Will Roark. I want to know where you live, and I want to know why you're on the list. I want to know who your friends are. I want to know why did you give me that name? Because they just had surgery, Rob. Okay, that's what I need to know. We're going to overwhelm them with get well cards. We're going to have some of our ladies drop off food. We're going to send a pizza on Friday night. We're going to have our young people wash their car. We're going all out. And then after 4 weeks of overwhelming love, we're going to send in our preacher, Special Forces Navy SEAL. He is a Navy SEAL in the Church of Christ. And we're going to knock on that door. He's going to identify himself and his wife, preacher at the Highway Church of Christ. And do you know what might happen, Stephen? You're the preacher for that church sending me those cards? Are you the reason I've been getting food? Yes, ma'am, we sent that. Would you come in? Don't be surprised if that happens. Now, if you did not do that, guys, if you did not prospect and you knocked on somebody's door and said, I'm the preacher for the Highway Church of Christ, what are the odds you get invited in? None. Do you see how this all works together? I can't give you all the details, but here's what I'm trying to do, and I hope you guys are starting to see this. I spent the last 2 days teaching you principles. Those principles mean nothing if they're not actionable. Okay, they're just a bunch of sermons to fire you up. I'm trying to give you action. And I'm going to give it to you, the elders and leadership tonight more specifically, but I want to share with you a vision of how this all works. Because those principles are not just, they don't do anything unless we put it together into a plan. You had your hand up, brother.
Yeah, so just, we're going real world here in real life. So we had this couple that don't go to church anymore.
Sure.
We had 3 young kids come 3 weeks ago, okay?
Okay.
They visited, we got their contact information, we sent them cards 2 weeks ago. I'm saying different families in the church. Here.
Sure.
Last week she came alone because her husband works.
Sure.
Would that be a hot or warm? Like where do we?
It's hot.
Okay.
They're sitting in your pew. It doesn't get any hotter than that, right? So that's a hot prospect, gets lots of attention. And so you overwhelm them with love. And you're not going to send 1 or 2 cards, not 4 cards from 4 widows. No, you're going to overwhelm them with love and make sure they know this church is there for them. So it's a great question. So let's go and just finish this real quick. This was just run through these. Number 7, participation. You got to get everybody in this church participating. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 12. The body's not one member, but what? Many. That's that word again. Many. We got to have many. All right. So we got to get everybody working. Number 8, prioritize. So evangelism becomes the number 1 thing you do. So the illustration I use is I walked into my elders meeting one time at Willette, and I said, brethren, would you let me start the meeting? And they said, well, Rob, what do you mean? I said, well, I want to start. And they said, well, if you'd like to. And I said, well, what do you want to talk about, Rob? I said, the lost. Huh? I said, we got 5 men in our pews every Sunday that are lost. I said, I want to know what we're going to do about it. And we baptized all 5 of them in 18 months. We talked about them in every elders meeting. In fact, we had a whiteboard that nobody else could see. And during our meetings, they would pull it up, and we talked about Bruce Bartley. And we talked about how we're going to get him. We talked about Samuel Gregory, the Mormon that sat in our pews, and how we were going to get to him. We talked about the Baptist, the Methodist, Billy Hudson, and how he was the farmer who's been in the pews for 30 years. And Ronnie Rhodes, who's preacher, is a Baptist pastor who sits in our pews, and how we're going to get to him. And we talked about them at every meeting. So it became a priority. Go to number 9. We were going to publicize our mission from the pulpit. One of the worst things you can do as a preacher or an eldership is not announce how you're going to bring the church to the mission. In other words, do it privately. So this is one thing that's not private, it's public. You have to do it together. This is a together mission. This is very important. So the pulpit must announce to the church what you're doing. The members must know what you're doing. They must know their jobs. But that's number 9. And then number 10, you should be praying about it, and praying about it frequently, and praying about it fervently. And I don't know a man in the brotherhood who does not include this phrase when he prays. Lord, keep us safe. Do y'all pray that? Keep me safe. Keep me safe when I go home. Keep me safe at work. Keep me safe on the roads. Keep me safe at, we pray that all the time. When's the last time we prayed for Billy Hudson? When's the last time I prayed for Ronnie Rhodes, for Samuel Gregory? So I just started praying for them. If they weren't in the pews, I prayed. I actually prayed for people on our contact list. And I asked the church to start praying too. And I want to create a culture where we pray for lost people. We actually named them. Have you ever named the lost and maybe on your street a neighbor and prayed for them? Not just once, but you pray for them all the time. Pray for them to be saved. Pray for a door of utterance to be open. Pray for people to be saved. Because it does something to your mind. It's hard to pray for people to be saved if you don't do something about it. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. There are some, I believe, some sweets and some food items that have been prepared. I know you want to eat, and so I believe you can go ahead and head on over to the annex. Is that what you call it? Thank you for allowing my family to be with you, brethren. We have really enjoyed being here with this church. You are a very special group of people. We love you, and may God bless you.